can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men Red number 10 by Al Ewing, Stefano Caselli, and Jacopo Camagni. This issue... Okay, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This might just go down as one of the most fire single issues of an X-Men comic in history. Why do I say that? It's because we get to see the big Duke-a-roo, Vulcan v Storm, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, and it is amazing. Now, I know some people, while they may be okay with the outcome of the battle that happens between Storm and Vulcan in this issue, where they finally settle it once and for all, who is not necessarily the most powerful Omega level mutant, because that really doesn't matter because you're Omega level. You're both ridiculously powered. Neither of you have any upper limit on what it is that you can do. But I think people are gonna be a little bit iffy, maybe, about how Storm wins this battle. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. Honestly, Storm is correct in everything that she said. Al Ewing wrote this perfectly because he is correct. Yes, they're both Omega level mutants. They both have power that is just unimaginably off the charts, and they could sit there and literally throw jabs at each other all day, but Storm is the more intelligent fighter. Vulcan is nothing more than pure rage and cockiness. That's really all Vulcan brings to the table. He's not a battlefield tactician. He's not a guy who has led multiple X teams and shot the fair one with Cyclops for battle of leadership over the X-Men when he didn't have superpowers to begin with. He's not someone who is so cold that he walked into the Morlocks' backyard and tried to throw hands with their leader and take the whole group over. He's not that guy. Yeah, sure, he took over the Shi'ar. I mean, okay, cool. But at the end of the day, he did not have what it takes to go toe-to-toe with Storm when it comes to a battle of not just wills, but wit. And that's what Storm brought to the table. She literally brought in the new Brotherhood of Mutants. This is something that has been on Storm's vision board since X-Men Red began. She wanted to kick off a new era of the Brotherhood, something that is famous for being the brainchild of Magneto. That, granted, when Magneto originally ran the Brotherhood, they were the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and then that kind of evolved over time to become something else. But the version that Storm wanted to create, Magneto is no longer there to help usher in that next evolution of his brainchild, and now Storm is the sole, member who is the one who has to carry the torch. And now that she has added not only her fellow Great Ring Iraqi leaders like Subanar of the Depths or Lotus Logos, but also the mutant formerly known as Rockslide, now going by the name Wrongslide. For those who aren't terribly familiar with the character of Rockslide, he is a mutant that has been an X-Man for, I would say, a little over the last decade. But for those who are recent converts to the Church of X, what you need to know is that Wrongslide, who was at the time Rockslide, was killed during Ten of Swords, and it was during that event that it was revealed that when a mutant is killed in Otherworld, it corrupts their mutant backup. So if you died in Otherworld and you were resurrected, you would be brought back. But it was a very high chance you would be brought back. Wrong. Case in point, we saw the character of Gorgon, who also died during Ten of Swords, who also came back. Wrong, because he died in Otherworld. We even saw in an instance where characters like Nanny and Orphan Maker, who died on a Minth, when they came back wrong too. Not as wrong as Rockslide and Gorgon. They just came back more aggressive. But once again, Wrongslide has found his place among the, quotey fingers, X-Men Red, but now more specifically among the new Brotherhood of Mutants. And this is all a part of the evolution of Arakko and how they are learning to no longer see helping one another as a weakness, that combining their powers together can make them incredibly and ridiculously powerful. Storm used the combined might of the Brotherhood to, for all intents and purposes, create a chamber within the planet of Arakko itself, full of an endless supply of water and enough Mysterium to basically block out everything that Vulcan was doing. This was partially why Storm was able to go toe-to-toe with him for as long as she had. And while Vulcan says early on that the fight between us the first time is not going to go the same way this time because I wasn't my full self and now I am, and Storm lets him know, I was holding back on you, pimpin'. But what I love about this is that Storm is just, once again, continuously proving over and over, time and time again, why she is one of the best, if not the best, mutants in the history of mutants. And I'm sorry, I will fight you on that. Al Ewing is consistently putting respect on Storm's name and treating her as the true queen that she deserves to be treated as. And I'm sorry, but it is what it is. That said, we also see some resolution in this issue regarding Abigail Brand. And this is something that honestly, I feel like I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. It's actually the one thing, the one aspect of Abigail Brand's plan I actually didn't see falling apart. And that is her alliance with Mentallo. Granted, Mentallo is a character who is loyal to the almighty dollar. And Abigail Brand has access to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s black budget, meaning she can just spend money ridiculously. She can go in the club and make it rain all night, and not just singles, she could make it rain Benjamin Franklin's in the club and it wouldn't matter. She could do it for days and weeks, months, years on end and never run out of money. And yet somehow Mentallo has been bought off. And who else would it be other than Sunspot? Sunspot is the guy who, if anyone's gonna have enough money to outbid someone with a black budget, it's gonna be him. Roberto da Costa is the son of a millionaire and he's no stranger to money or how to make it. He was the guy behind the original version of X-Corp. He knows how to get that dollar, and he also knows how to throw money around to win even his enemies over, and that's what he does. He actually gets Mentallo on the side of the Night Seats, and while Sunspot does actually pull the one-up card on Abigail Brand alongside Xander, who has been keeping tabs on Abigail Brand through the mind of Mentallo, not only that, but piggybacking all the information back to Cable, so now pretty much everybody knows that Abigail Brand was on that Fox News BS. It doesn't really matter in the end because now that she has been outed, she has completely left the building. But the question is, what happens to her next? Because when she does sneak away, she's met by the Nameless One, he who has no name, who is also a member of the Night Seats. And it seems like whatever happened, Roberto ran Abigail off and she ran straight into the arms of the Fisher King, who seems to have some idea of what he wants to do with her. We don't really know yet what his plans for Abigail might mean, but whatever it is, it's something related to the Night Seats, most likely. But I feel like if that was the case, Roberto would be in on whatever that could possibly be, but we don't really know where it's gonna go from here. All we know is that the Fisher King has let Abigail know that he knows way more about her than anyone has ever actually known before, because the truth of the matter is he knows Abigail's true name. Yeah, of course her name is Abigail, but Brand is actually not Abigail's true last name. Her true last name, and I will probably butcher this, is Thanriagossis, or Thanriagocious, or Guicius, or Gosh, I don't know. Point of the matter is, I get why she goes by the name Brand. And for all intents and purposes, the Fisher King lets Abigail know off rip, whatever it was you were planning, it's done, it's dusted, it will never come to fruition, and what happens to the enemies of Arakko is that they are destroyed. Now, when he talks about destroying them, he doesn't necessarily mean literally. You can tell that he's speaking in the comic book sense, in the metaphorical sense. The death of Abigail Brand doesn't mean that she's gonna die, but it means there's gonna be great change for who and what she is and represents going forward. And it makes me wonder if he's gonna put her in some kind of a position where he can utilize her talents, her ability to operate on such a high reconnaissance level. I feel like the Night Seats are gonna wind up making use of her in some way, and maybe this could be a way for the Night Seats to kind of turn the tables, flip everything around on Orchis, because we can't forget Abigail Brand has been playing double agent. She's not only been working with Sword and, trying to pretend that she's in alliance with Krakoa, but also she has been in bed with Orcus as of late. Something tells me whatever it is going on, Abigail's gonna have to make a play, and she's very likely gonna get turned against Orcus. Who knows? All that aside, we also see the resolution of what is going on with Orbis Stellaris, and we finally learn the identity of who Orbis Stellaris truly is. And as it turns out, we now know who the ace of the Sinister clones are now. We've had the diamond suit of Mr. Sinister for the longest of times, but we had recently learned in Jerry Duggan's X-Men series, roughly around the time of X-Men number 11, that the new X-Men villain, Dr. Stasis, was in fact a clone of Mr. Sinister, one who believes he's the original Nathaniel Essex. He doesn't believe that he's a clone. He thinks he's the real McCoy. The truth of the matter is, I don't think he is, and I think it's just one of those situations where they all think they're the real one. Because we also know now that Orbis Stellaris is the ace, a version of Nathaniel Essex who is incredibly old, who looks like he's about to completely fall the over when the shell that he's been hiding in opens up. But what we do know is he's not done yet. Even with all the things he was doing, with all the gene splicing, the manipulation of genetics, all of it kind of should have been a red flag that maybe this was related to Sinister in some way. It had all the hallmarks of Mr. Sinister and Nathaniel Essex. It just reeked of him, but for some reason, I just didn't see it that way. And I kind of like that I didn't see it that way. I like that I was surprised by it. I was genuinely shocked. And it wasn't until they were about to say, hey, open him up, I was like, oh, wait. He's Sinister. It wasn't until just before I turned the page, I was like, yep, that's who it is. That is precisely who it is. So once again, we now know who he is, and everything that we just saw is leading straight into Sins of Sinister, so I'm excited. I don't know about anybody else. I'm actually really hyped for this. Now, as far as everything else is going on with X-Men Red, I don't really know exactly where it's going to go from here, but what we do know is that since Abigail Brand is out, WizKid is now the leader of Sword Base, and everyone pretty much kind of seems to be okay with that. And this is an opportunity for WizKid to make up for some of the things they did working alongside Abigail Brand in some of the previous issues of Sword. So yeah, this is a way for WizKid to kind of build up some goodwill. And we also know that Cable is going to be hanging around, not acting as a leader, but still operating as a chief of security. But I think we all know Cable's going to be the guy everyone looks to in the end. And we also know that Thunderbird is gonna be hanging around. He says that he isn't, but I think it's just posturing, as Cable kind of alludes that originally in X-Men Red #1, it seemed like Thunderbird was still harboring those old grudges from, back in the old OG X-Men days when Cyclops and Thunderbird did not get along at all. It seemed like he was still harboring that, and he kind of actually was, but he does seem to have been warming up to Cable, but he's just not allowing himself to admit it. But he's definitely going to be hanging around. We also know that Cora of the Burning Heart is also going to be hanging around and has seemingly volunteered herself to be a part of whatever this new X-Men team is supposed to be going forward, whatever Sword is supposed to be going forward. Not only that, she's also volunteered to be a liaison between Sword and the Iraqi mutants. As for her sister, Weaponless Jen, she is going to be taking a bit of a sabbatical. It's hinted that she may or may not come back, but when Cable talks about her, he does make references to her powers, how she's able to paint the truth. And this is also one of the reasons why we know who Orbis Stellaris is, because she uses her power to paint a picture of who Orbis Stellaris really is for Cable. We also know that the character of Manifold has learned a little bit more about how his powers work and how his powers synergize with one of Arako's other mutants, Lactuca of the Stars. And while she refers to him as like a sibling of sorts, it seems like there's some deeper connection going on there. But I feel like eventually at some point, Manifold and Lactuca are going to wind up realizing that their powers allow each other to do some incredible things. Because one of the things we've learned about Manifold is that the only way his powers can be utilized is if he can have a direct line of sight to the stars. If there's some kind of a window that he can look out of into the stars, he can use his powers. Without access to being able to see the stars, he can't conjure, or rather ask the universe to grant him portals and the other facets of his abilities. But when Lactuca of the Stars, who pretty obviously looks like a person made up of galaxies and stars, kind of similar to the character Eternity, only a little less pronounced, that gave him access to his powers despite being in a windowless area. So yeah, there's a lot more to learn about what's going on with Eden Fezzi as far as his abilities go. And then of course we know Mentalo is also going to be in the wind just like Weaponless Jin because, well, he's got to spend that money that Roberto gave him, so there's that. But there's a lot to love in this issue of X-Men Red, and while I believe this is theoretically the final issue for X-Men Red, just, for now, whether or not it comes back later or what is the next move with X-Men Red going forward, I'm not really 100% certain. But once again, I'm so excited for the future of Storm in this. I'm so excited for the future of all of the other characters in X-Men Red. The only character I feel like we didn't really get any kind of resolution on was Frenzy. Granted, she did get her cheeks clapped by Vulcan in the previous issue, so she might be dead and awaiting resurrection. Hard to say at this point, but Al Ewing was allowed to cook in his cosmic corner, and it's always going to be great when he gets to do that sort of thing. So I'm excited. I can't wait for Sins of Sinister. I'm very anxious because it's one of those events where initially I was kind of hesitant to be excited for it, and then over time I've just kind of decided to taper my expectations for it, and then now I'm just like, the closer it gets, I'm just like, okay, all right, yeah, let's do this, let's get to it. But anyways, that's everything I wanted to break down from X-Men Red number 10. If you are new to the channel, or you're just someone who's watched my videos for a long time but just always forgot to subscribe, consider clicking subscribe, become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and make sure that you tap that bell button because I do videos every week breaking down my favorite Marvel and DC comics as well as comics from other imprints. So if you tap that bell, that makes sure you don't miss any of my videos. On your way out, make sure to Hulk smash that like button and click the share button because it really helps the channel out. And in the meantime, let me know what you thought about X-Men Red number 10. And are you excited for Sins of Sinister? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.